A rough plank coffee table feels less like furniture and more like a conversation with the past. It carries with it a sense of material honesty, a reminder that wood, in its most straightforward form, doesn't need embellishment to make a statement. It's simply there, solid, imperfect, textured, and because of those very qualities, it grounds the space around it in a way manufactured tables rarely can. When you sit in a room with one, the table doesn't feel like just a place to set down a drink. It feels like an anchor, a weight that ties the room to something older, slower, and more tangible than the hum of screens and the blur of everyday motion. The first thing you notice is the texture. Unlike polished and machined surfaces, these tables let the wood speak for itself. The planks still carry scars from their past lives. Saw marks, knots, grain that refuses to run straight, edges that dip or curve in defiance of clean lines. They may come from old barns, dismantled factories, or fallen trees, and each mark hints at where they came from. A notch where a nail once sat, a weathered groove softened by time, a streak of darkened grain where water once traced its way down the board. These details are not sanded away. They are left visible, not as flaws, but as proof. Proof that the material has lived another life before becoming this table. The planks themselves are usually thick and unapologetic. Some tables feature 2 or 3 wide boards set side by side, their uneven edges creating slight gaps or overlaps that feel purposeful rather than accidental. Others use multiple narrower planks, their surfaces playing just enough to sit flat, but never enough to erase the character of the wood. The boards often don't match perfectly in tone or texture, and that's the point. You're not looking for uniformity. You're looking for authenticity, for the visual rhythm that comes when different pieces of wood are allowed to coexist rather than being forced into sameness. The edges often remain rough, not sharp, but raw enough to feel natural under your hand. They might still hold traces of bark, or at least the uneven contour of where bark once was. Some are softened by years of handling, others by the craftsman's careful sanding, but they are rarely shaped into straight, artificial lines. Those edges invite you to run your fingers along them, to trace the subtle dips and curves, to feel the way the tree grew rather than the way a machine cut. The bases of these tables can vary widely, but they almost always complement rather than compete. Some are as raw as the top, chunky wooden legs made from the same reclaimed stock, left with their own scars and stories. Others use clean, modern metal frames, black steel, brushed brass, or simple iron, providing a stark contrast that makes the rough planks above feel even more organic. The combination of weathered wood and industrial metal often feels natural, like a quiet meeting point between 2 worlds, the untamed and the manufactured, coexisting without conflict. When you sit down beside one of these tables, you notice how much it changes the feel of a room. In a modern living space with clean lines and polished finishes, it softens the atmosphere, adds warmth, makes the space feel less sterile. In a rustic room, it blends seamlessly, almost disappearing into the larger aesthetic, like it's been there forever. Outdoors, on a covered patio or deck, it looks as if it belongs, whether blending naturally with weather, grain echoing the trees and landscape beyond. The beauty of rough plank coffee tables is not perfection, but presence. They are not afraid to age, to show wear, to accumulate their own history on top of the one they already carry. Each new scratch or stain doesn't ruin them. It layers another story onto the surface, another moment captured in wood. Over years, the table becomes less of an object and more of a chronicle, a record of gatherings, quiet mornings, late-night conversations, and all the countless touches that turn a house into a home. The finishes, when applied, are rarely glossy. Most are oiled or waxed to keep the wood breathing, to highlight the grain without making it reflective or slick. Some are left nearly raw, allowing the wood to evolve naturally, darkening, lightening, or graying as the years pass. A soft matte finish invites touch. It makes you want to place your hand flat on the surface, to feel the cool smoothness of the planed sections, the subtle roughness of the more weathered patches, the way the grain rises and falls beneath your fingertips. The scent lingers too. Even when sealed, rough planks often carry the faint, earthy smell of wood, not artificial, not chemical, just a whisper of the tree's origin. On warm days, with sunlight streaming across the table, that scent can surface, subtle and grounding, like a memory you can't quite name but know you felt before. And while these tables are beautiful, they are also undeniably practical. Their heft makes them stable. They don't wobble or shift when you lean against them. Their surfaces, though textured, are resilient, able to take on the daily wear of mugs, books, laptops, and feet without losing their integrity. In fact, that wear only makes them more themselves. A ring from a coffee cup doesn't feel like damage. It feels like life. Each one is distinct, because each plank has a story no other can match. Maybe the wood was once part of a farmhouse built a century ago, and you can still see nail holes along the edge. Maybe it came from a storm-felled tree, its grain wild and erratic from years of growth under tension. Maybe it's a mixture of species, pieced together by an artist who understood how light and dark tones could play off one another. You don't just buy a table like this. You inherit a fragment of something older than you. Over time, you stop noticing the imperfections as imperfections. The uneven edge where two boards meet becomes a favorite detail. The knot in the center becomes the spot you always trace absent-mindedly while talking. The weathered streak along one corner becomes a reminder that wood, even in a domestic space, still carries the wild within it. It's that quiet unpredictability, not chaotic, but unrefined, that makes rough plank coffee tables feel alive, even as they sit motionless in your living room. In a world where so much is designed to be sleek, flawless, and replaceable, these tables resist. They aren't trying to blend in. They aren't trying to be trendy. They're just honest. A slab, a plank, a surface that's seen years and is ready to see more. You don't have to handle them delicately. You don't have to worry about keeping them pristine. They are meant to be used, to gather marks, to become more themselves with each passing year. And that's their quiet power. They don't just hold your books, your drinks, or your conversations. They hold time. They hold stories. They hold the reminder that even in a space filled with the temporary and the synthetic, something real, something slow, something shaped by hand and weather and history, can still exist at the center of it all. Rough plank coffee tables bring the tree back into the room, not as a neat, uniform piece of furniture, but as something closer to what it was: wide, uneven boards, each carrying its own marks, lines, and scars. They are not sanded into invisibility. They are shaped just enough to serve their purpose, but not so much that they lose what made them wood in the first place. The surface is thick, heavy, one or two long planks, sometimes three, joined edge to edge with seams you can still see. The boards are wide enough to show the story in the grain, the tight, dark lines of older wood, the lighter swirls of sapwood, the occasional knot, crack, or curl that refuses to be hidden. Some edges remain live, the natural contours of the tree intact, rolling like the line of a river. Others are squared but still rough, carrying faint tool marks or softened corners that tell you these weren't factory cut. The finish is minimal. No mirror gloss, just oil, wax, or matte polyurethane, enough to deepen the tone and protect the surface without erasing its texture. The wood feels warm under the hand. It doesn't feel like something sealed in plastic. It feels like wood, alive, even in its stillness. The bases vary, but they always give space for the planks to speak. Some tables use simple steel frames, blackened or brushed, low and narrow, letting the top carry the visual weight. Others rest on solid wooden blocks or trestle-style supports, keeping the whole piece cohesive and raw. No ornate legs, no unnecessary curves. The structure stays simple so the surface can take the attention. Every table has its imperfections, and that's the point. Small cracks might be filled with resin, clay, dark, or even metallic, to stabilize without hiding. Ends might show checking lines. A knot hole might run all the way through, adding a pocket of negative space. These details make the table feel real, not mass-produced, not flawless, honest. Rough plank coffee tables fit anywhere, but they change the tone of the space they enter. In a modern living room, they break the sterility, adding weight and warmth. In a rustic setting, they disappear into the atmosphere, looking like they've always been there. In a loft or industrial space, the contrast between rough wood and raw concrete or steel makes both materials feel stronger. They aren't just for display, either. These tables are built to be used, to hold weight, to pick up small marks over the years that don't ruin them. They just add to the texture, the story, the life of the surface. A scratch doesn't stand out. It blends in. The table doesn't age badly. It just ages. Making one isn't complicated, but it takes the right eye. Choosing planks with character, but not so warped they're unusable. flattening and joining while leaving the grain and edges intact, brushing out the loose fibers, sanding only where necessary, and sealing the wood without losing its raw feel, building a base that doesn't fight the top, but supports it. The work is straightforward, but the restraint, the choice to stop before the wood loses its identity, is what sets the best ones apart. And when it's done, it doesn't feel like furniture that was made. It feels like something that was found, as if those planks could have been lying somewhere for years, waiting for legs and a place to live. And when the room goes quiet, the table doesn't just sit there. It holds the room together. Every knot, every uneven edge, every scar in the wood grounding the space like an anchor, as if the tree it came from is still standing somewhere, rooted deep, reminding you that not every surface has to be polished to be complete.